G'day, g'day, g'day. Crazy times. Hope you're doing all right. I think we're day 11 lockdown or day 12. But anyway, surviving. Now, I have ordered a couple of bags of grain to hopefully get me through for at least a couple of months. Now, I went to fill up my bucket. I've got one for Nakarada malts, or two for Pilsner malts that I'm using at the moment. I found I still had 3.5 kilo, or just over 3.5 kilo, 3.517 or 5 left. So I thought I'll use that. And I thought, what would happen if that was all I had? Now, everyone knows I've brewed many sort of, they're not in Australia, they're not called mid-strength. You know, they're between sort of 4 and 5%, 4.5%. beers, just so you can have a few and not have to worry, you know. And of course, 3.5 kilo grain in a full batch, 22 litre batch, doesn't get me to that. So I thought, what would I do? So one of the first shopping expeditions when this craziness all started and, you know, the shelves were empty, I found some porridge. Australian quick oats. There's 500 grams in that. So I'm going to use that. And yesterday I went to IGA and I found this wheat. It doesn't say anything about it. It's not malted. I did notice just before that the date packed was the 2nd of the 2nd this year, so it's fresh. And as long as that is actually airtight, they shouldn't be too dried out or stale or anything. So I'm going to try to use that as well. Quick mention about oats, because people comment every time I use them. Yes, look, if they're not pre-gelatinized or whatever, you need to boil them and cook them. I always suggest using these quick oats. It just means they're cut up and they cook so much faster. You don't have to. People somehow think that they get a better flavour or something from the ones that aren't cut up, but it doesn't quite make sense. You don't have to use the cut up ones. But the thing is, for me, the mash happens quickly. You need the enzymes from your grain to be nice and excited to help you get through those oats quickly. You know, with these quick oats, that they're going to be cooked or, by the mash, moist, releasing all their good stuff very quickly. The other ones take longer. They'll still work, don't get me wrong. I just like to use the quick ones. I know it's going to happen quick. I know all the enzymes are going to be there and everything's going to be done nice and fast. That's why I always recommend quick oats. Now, this wheat, we'll go back onto this wheat. It looks nice and clean. There's no sticks or rocks or anything in there. They're just as uniform as most grains I've seen. There might be a couple of small ones in there. I'll just mill this separately, make sure I get it, nice and fine, like I do with wheat anyway. Mill it twice if I have to, and then I'll add it to the other grain. If the wheat doesn't work, and I don't get any extraction out of it for some unknown reason, I'll just add some dextrose or some sugar or some dry malt or something at the end just to bump the alcohol a little bit. But basically that's it. It's going to be 3.5 kilo of grain, 0.5 kilo of oats, and I'm going to split this into and have 0.5 kilo of wheat. So it's kind of heading towards an NEIPA. I do want to use the Lalbrew East Coast NEIPA yeast that they supplied me a week or so ago. Haven't tried that yeast yet, but I won't be brewing a standard NEIPA. It'll be like a hazy pale ale / cross NEIPA thing. There's going to be some bitterness. Now, getting to that, I'm going to bitter it very small at the start, maybe 10 grams of Magnum, sort of like I usually do for pale ale. Maybe 5, haven't quite worked it out yet, probably 10. But I'm not going to add any other hops to the boil. I'm not going to drop it to 80. I'm not going to do anything like that. What I'm going to do is try out the hop missile, hop rocket, using it like a hop back. And I'm going to fill that. I do have 100 grams of Galaxy. I'm not going to use the whole 100 grams because I want to keep 50 of it for a good beer you know, like IPA or a really good pale ale, where this is sort of a throw together. It'll still be good, but you know what I mean? Keep it for something a bit more special. I'm just not sure how much bitterness it's going to add. And it's hard really to find out any information about it because it's a bit hit and miss, bitterness. Bitterness is hit and miss at the best of times, let alone when you're doing things like this. I do have some Halito hop flowers left over. So I might throw 50 grams of Galaxy and 25 grams of the Halito in there. It's New Zealand. If you haven't seen the Kolsch video yet, I've brewed a Kolsch beer using just the whole hop Halito flowers. That's just about to be cold crashed tomorrow. I've also set up the Maltzilla. I have a Maltzilla at the moment. Now, I haven't been able to get the hopper because of this lockdown. I ordered one online, the correct size hopper thing, and it just hasn't turned up. It was from, you use a water bottle, a 12-litre water bottle, I think it is, from Officeworks, and I've been waiting a week and a half for it, so I don't have a big hopper. I've used a 2-litre apple juice bottle for the hopper, and I'm just going to use that for the wheat and give it a go. It saves me, because this wheat looks a little bit smaller than my grain, it's going to save me messing with my main mill. I can just leave it as is, as I like it, and I can run the wheat through this because it's the first time I've used it. Just test it out, try and get a good gap size, and that'll do for the wheat. Helps me test it, and it helps this recipe. I don't have to mess with my mill. Perfect. The 3.5 kilo grain must have been sitting there for about 6 months. It has been in a bucket, but it's likely dried out a little. So I am grain conditioning, wet conditioning it. I still do that with all my grain. Again, people say you don't need to, or you're just chasing efficiency. It's none of that. It just makes my brew day easier. It makes flow better in single vessel thin systems. It also saves me adjusting my mill. I can use all different types of grain. I've got it set to a point now, and so I can put the bigger grains through as long as I've wet conditioned them, and they won't be pulverized. Yet it's still small enough to crack most wheats. I know I've said I'm using the different mill for this wheat. It is a totally different wheat. It's not from a home brew shop, so that's why, and I wanted to test the Maltzilla. But besides that, the grain conditioning, I still swear by it. It takes 15-20 minutes, and that's 15 of that is wait time. You know what I mean? It's less than 5 minutes to wet it. 2%. So for this batch, it was 3.5 kilo of grain. I used, 2%, 70 grams worth of water. And use a spray bottle. I've tried dripping it on before. It does work, but it's nowhere near as good. Spray bottle, and make sure you leave it that 15-20 minutes. If your mill is gumming up, you've done something wrong. You've calculated wrong, or you haven't let it steep or soak it in, because there's no way in the world it should ever stick or make a mill gummy. You've done something wrong. 2%. 5 kilo grain. So you just take it, that's 50 grams. Times 2 for 2%, 100 grams of water for 5 kilo of grain. It's that easy. So that's it. Let's get to it and we'll see how we go. The only thing, of course, that could happen, there's a lot of this wheat and the porridge or oats is going to get very gummy and gum it up a bit. It's only a small recipe though. I will throw in some rice hulls still. I heard rice hulls were getting hard to buy, so I bought 2 packets of rice hulls. They're just handy to have. I don't have to use them since I've been wet conditioning, but I just throw them in these days because I have them here, and they just help everything as well, Let's go. Just a quick note about the water. I didn't filter the water today, just in case it was the apocalypse and I couldn't get filters. No, it's because it was a pale ale and I had to add things to get it to the water profile I wanted. I didn't have to take things away. So I used tap water, sped things up, the process up a bit for me. I did treat, I had 55 litres in my HLT and I treated it with 2 grams of sodium metabisulfite. to neutralise the chlorine and chloramine that's in tap water. But to adjust the mash pH and to get the salt levels where I wanted them, I added 3 ml of lactic acid to the mash water and various salts which you can find in the recipe. I can feel some balls of the wheat. See, there we go. That's the wheat. I reckon. Or something, but that doesn't usually happen. I'm guessing that's the wheat. No, I nearly missed that then. It was huge. See, this doesn't usually happen to me. So I'm guessing that for some reason either the grain got pushed down faster than usual, which it shouldn't because it's usually less grain than I usually use, or it's what I don't usually use, which is like the wheat. That wasn't porridge then. That was the powderised, just about wheat. Pulverised, powderised, whatever. That was the world's biggest Doughball. I'm breaking records of the Robo Brew. I reckon that's the biggest Doughball I've ever seen in a Robo Brew. But see, that's why even if I miss one, because I stir a couple of times, usually during the mash, you'll end up breaking them up. You'll eventually find them. If you were just to leave it, that might stay dry to the end of your mash, even with recircling. Might just be hard rock. Sparge is about 14 litres. I just sparge up to the 30 litre mark again as usual. way down into my pump. It's a bit hard to see there. We come out of the pump into the bottom of the hop missile, up through the hops, into the plate chiller, could be any chiller, out of the plate chiller, and soon that hose is going to be inside the fermenter. Spray with some alcohol sanitizer. Works just about instantly, and I'm just being probably overcautious. Super kill. Well, there's a fair bit of bitterness and taste there. Definitely. Yep, Galaxy. Oh, that's going to be good. This is where things got weird. As you can see there, it's about 1.048. Now that's about 4 points over what I was expecting as a post boil number. Now my pre-boil was 3 or 4 points down, so that's why I added some sugar, but then at the end I was about 3 or 4 points over. So I'm not sure what happened there. I did take a couple of pre-boil readings just to make sure, but you know, it's no big deal. And I didn't quite realise when I did the wrap up at the end of the brew day, I thought I was aiming for 0.048 at the time, but I should have realised that I was actually aiming for 0.044. There we go. Brew day's done. Chaos of a day. I got to the points. I did have to add some sugar. But I was sort of expecting that. I wasn't sure about the crush on the wheat. Not because of the new mill, well, that was a little part of it, I guess, but because of the new wheat. I don't know anything about it. There's nothing on the packet or anything. But besides that, I bit off more than I could chew originally when I first started setting up the hop missile, but that was only because I was going to rely on the Brewzilla or Brew pump, and then I sort of doubted it at the end. They're only a little pump, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to stop halfway through. Not that it's ever stopped before, but I have tried to push that pump and push it, you know, a long way, and it doesn't really like it. It's not made for it. So that's why I broke out my old trusty Mark II, I think it is, Mark II or 3. I've had for years, and then I had to get out tubes I hadn't used and clean them and sanitize them and find clamps and all that sort of thing. But anyway, we got there, it worked. The hop missile worked great. I can smell it in here and taste it. There is a bitterness. Not as much as I thought I'd get from it though. Oh, it's tasty though. There's not as much. I thought it'd be really bitter. I'm glad it isn't. But it's good. It is good. It's a different kind of hop flavour than you'd get from a normal hot whirlpool or even a cold whirlpool. Cheers. Again, it's nowhere near as dark as it looks on camera. This is a recipe that is coming. The patrons would have seen me make the recipe, maybe brew it, I'm not sure. I've got footage, but I used the Leyland Voss. Well, I used Voss with this one, and it doesn't really suit the beer. I mean, the beer's good, but it's not the clone that it was. Sorry, interrupted then. Yeah, it's still a good beer and a Vossy style beer, but you know, it's not like the hop stomper, which I'm after. But if you've considered using Voss and you use dry yeast like Leyland, go for it. It tastes exactly like any of the other liquid Vosses I've used before, as in Amiga and what was the other one? White Labs. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The other Vosses, this is you couldn't tell the difference between them if you brewed with either the liquid or the dry. I keep getting interrupted. Family home. So crazy brew day. I was down a few points. So I added 300 grams of sugar at the boil. You will not taste that. There's people that say, and they must have really good taste buds, they can taste actual taste difference in the carbonation, not just difference in carbonation. When they use, a tiny little bit of sugar for carbing, well, they're very, very good if they can, because I can tell you they probably drink a lot of beers where sugar's added, IPAs, Belgians, where no one stops and goes, oh, this tastes like it's got sugar in it. But anyway, I'm not having a go at anyone, I'm just mentioning, because I know people will comment and say, oh, you put sugar in it. It doesn't matter. Have a look at a professional program like Brewfather, and when you're in that wort adjustment, it suggests sugar. If it wasn't able to be used successfully, they wouldn't even suggest it. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, Hop Rocket worked. I didn't lose as much volume as I thought. I did lose about 1 litre in the Hop Rocket. I'm not sure which bit of footage. I'm making 2 videos. I'll make this crazy recipe video, and I'll make a video about the Hop Rocket too separately, because some people don't watch the recipes and some people don't watch the reviews. So there'll be a bit in this one and a bit in this one. And the same with the mill. I'll do a proper review of the mill once I work it out properly. It was the first time I'd used it today. Anyway, cheers, thank you, like, subscribe. It's a bit chaotic here at the moment. As you can imagine, it's chaos everywhere. But we'll get over this. Stay safe. Take care. Love yous all. Take it easy. Thanks. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Thanks to the Patreons. Cheers. I'm going in to lay down. I've had it. This yeast is supposed to be a slow starter as well, but it looks like there's some form of action, be it small. Keep in mind there was no tube in this, because it gets filtered through the hops. That's just yeast action. So it started. For a slow starter, apparently it's on its way. It's only been in about it's about 11:30 at night now, so I'd be lucky to be in 5 hours or something, the yeast. But it looks like it's starting. It's now Saturday morning, I brewed this on Thursday, and I was under the assumption that this yeast was going to take a little bit more time to ferment. But the Krausen's dropped, so I've sort of way missed the NEIPA style dry hopping opportunity, because this looks like it's just about done. Well, saying that, this is where I always dry hop. I think I've said it in 100 videos. Once I start seeing the wort through the bubbles, like there is still Krausen, but it's that thin that when there's big bubbles you can see the wort through it. That's when I know when we're probably under 1.020. Time to ramp and time to finish off, or dry hop a normal type beer. So I've missed the NEIPA style dry hopping for this because it's nearly over. You know, I should have dry hopped at 24 hours, but for to get a lot of bias transformation. But I'll still get some dry hopping now. So I'm just going to do one dry hop. I'm going to go through the top, just because this fridge is really hard to work in. There's no space. I haven't got the time today to take the bottom jar off like I might on other brews. So I'm just going to dry hop through the top, and I think I'll go with Citra and Nelson Sav. I'm saving my Galaxy for another beer. So I went 30 grams of Nelson and 50 grams of Citra. It's going to pop off by itself. Yeah, it's coming off by itself. Just the pressure in there itself is popping the lid up. You left to let a little bit out so you can get the lid loose, but just be careful. Oh, there's a lot of pressure there. Yeah, see, it popped itself. Whoa, where did the yeast go off? Let's get this in. Push that down. And whatever you do, don't forget to put that back on. Which one's the gas one? This one. Done. That pressure's building up already. Nothing to worry about. There's no need to flush that. If I start flushing that now, I'll be stirring up what's in there. At the moment, if there's any oxygen in there, yeah, some of it might have went in with the hops, but you know, there's the Krausen there, there's CO2 still coming out of solution. The oxygen that's in the top here isn't really touching the beer. Yes, it's touching the Krausen, but and you know, it'll eventually just get forced out because it's still fermenting. If I was to put CO2 in there and purge it, what happens is you see the CO2 go down and it pushes the Krausen out of the way and it stirs up. It'd be mixing up all the oxygen in there and pushing it into the beer. Now, people have different theories about that. You might do it really, really slowly, a little bit of pressure, but I think it's just best just to leave it like that. The Krausen's protecting the beer, and because it's still fermenting, the CO2 will just push out whatever's up here, and it'll all be CO2 by the time this is finished fermenting.